Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Empower Your Soul. I am here today with a dear friend of mine. You may have heard her in our Weather Vane Witches podcast that was released not too long ago, but this is Rachael, the Good Witch of the Northeast. Girl, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh my goodness. So, for those of you that don't know or maybe missed the first episode I had with Rachael, she is a psychic medium, ancestral healer, and oracle. She uses a lot of cards and channeling to help her clients with their own path out of darkness and has found a huge success in integrating physical and medical based practices such as body work and metaphysical work to help clients feel connected and in control of their own destiny. And I have seen firsthand the magic that you do, Rachael.
Thanks.
So this is going to just be a really fun chat with Rachael. And I want you all to learn so much about Rachael because she is literal magic and she's just everything. And I just love, I remember stalking you on social media before we were friends, Rachael.
Really? I remember when you followed me, I was like, I've been looking for her.
Oh my goodness. It's so funny because I was like, the Good Witch of the Northeast is, to me, there's so much about witchcraft, witchery that has such a negative connotation, and you just fucking call it out right in the name. And I love that about you.
Thanks.
Oh my goodness. So for those of you that are less familiar with you, like who is Rachael? What like little background about you, your
Cool.
history, that would be wonderful if you don't mind.
Phenomenal. So I started practicing witchcraft. Well, first of all, hi, I'm Rachael. Um, I I started practicing witchcraft in 2016, but started really my healing journey and became Rachael in 2020 after the birth of my daughter. So I kind of stumbled along witchcraft in for 4 years. I started with Wicca and it felt like almost right. Like when you plug like a C port into a regular charger, you're like, this doesn't quite fit. And that now fast forward 10 years and I'm like, oh shit, that makes sense why. Because it's so patriarchal, it's so like, but I don't know. Anyways, and then I was studying the craft off and on for 4 years, and then I had my daughter had a really bad bout of past postpartum depression, anxiety, and sought the help of THC oil to help me kind of ground that energy and heal that part of me. I had been sober for 10 years before that, and I accidentally took too much. Like they told me to take 10 drops of this oil, and I took 10 droppers full because I didn't know the difference. Um, yeah.
Yep.
And then I woke up the next day and I was like, oh my God, I know things. And it was like spirit had pulled back. Like I feel like I threw the baby out with the bathwater when I was growing up, and spirit pulled back the curtain, and I was like, "Oh my God, not only do I know things, I see things." And I don't see things traditionally like the way your son sees spirit, but I see them like in the third eye. I see perspectives. I see things come through to me in italics. Like when someone's talking to me, I can feel what they're trying to say underneath, their actual language that they use. But I do this is my job, this is what I do for work, and I help people heal a lot of I work with people that feel unseen, I think. I think it's a lot of what I do is I help people feel seen, feel safe, especially in this community. Like when I started, it was so gatekeepy. It was so closed and off, and you couldn't talk about it, and everyone thought you were crazy. And I was like, well, if you already think I'm crazy, I'm not going to keep the shit in.
Yeah, and I think that is just a testament to your name too, because you're like, I'm the good witch. And I just remember you mentioning Rachael and I are really good friends outside of this, best friends maybe. Outside of this, she's throwing the hearts at me. Um, and what's so cool about you is you are the antithesis of, I think, what a lot of people think a witch is.
Yes.
Like it blows me away too, because I've actually had readings where, and I've told this to you, yeah, I'm not a witch, where the people have said I've never had a life as like a witch. And I think it's that sense of the word though, of what people
Grown.
interpret witch to be, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then for some reason, I just keep getting, this is going to be a 100% spirit led interview. I love this so much because I just keep getting the image of how untraditional you are and how that just draws in the right people. And what they keep showing me is the cannabis festival that you had
Yes.
a booth at, right? And you
Harvest Cup.
and at the Harvest Cup in Worcester, Massachusetts, and how you had a booth there, and all of these other readers that are there had like no clients, and you had like a revolving door of clients
I
there.
read like 44 people over the weekend.
It's just,
It was crazy.
they got to experience the magic of Rachel, and I think that was such a turning point for you in realizing the fucking power that you have.
Of just like being myself, because that was, I always thought you had to like fit in a box and be, you had to ascend and you had to do these things. And I was like, well, I'm never gonna fucking get there. Because I'm an ancestral worker, I am very aware of who I come from, where I come from, and what aligns with me and my energy. And I'm like, doing a meditation I love to meditate. I love yoga so much, but I am not the yogi that wakes up at 4 a.m. and holds tree pose. Like I'm too scattered for that.
I'll preach. I am the
You
same
know,
way. No, if it's slow, I'm all set.
you talk about that all the time.
Oh my goodness. So let's talk about the ancestral work then. Can you tell me a little bit more? Because I am, for those, I mean, all you listeners know, I'm more mediumship space, Akashic record space, shamanic space, and you have this whole other ancestral modality that I'm obsessed with. So, in your opinion or in your words, how would you define ancestral healing?
So it's such like I love talking about this with you too, because I feel like what we do is very much two sides of the same coin. Like when I met you, I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. And then um, so ancestral healing for me is really, when you break it down, it's trauma healing through epigenetics. So
Mm,
it's looking at the people who've come before us, looking at their patterns, understanding their stories, and moving from there. Because I know in the brain development world, in an underdeveloped brain, we have such a childish perspective on things. We take everything in, everything's our fault, all of these things. And I think that as our ancestors existed and things happened, there wasn't a lot of room for healing in the terms that we can heal now when it comes to epigenetics. Like I said, it's my favorite word to use. Um, because trauma can be passed down the same way eye color can be passed down. We're formed in the bodies of our grandmothers. Like that was my favorite breaking point for ancestral healing for me. Because I know that I respond to stuff that I have no business responding to. Like stuff would trigger me that I'm like, this is not mine. But I
mm,
would think to my grandmother and think of how she lived. And I was like, oh, okay. And for years, my family, we're super Irish, so we don't talk a lot about like traumas or experiences or anything like that. And the core of what we do, I feel like mediumship says that no one truly dies until they're not talked about anymore.
mm.
And for my family, like as soon as someone dies, people are like deuces, bye. And like I feel like once I connected in, I
Yep.
had like 10 generations back come flying forward of like, this is who we are. This is what we're meant to do. There's
Mhm.
something in the Druid magic called Celtic seership. And that's really what I've clung to because it's all about understanding perspectives, patterns, things like that. It's something that they did, God, thousands of years ago. And
Mhm.
it's been lost over time. So for me, ancestral healing in my line is tapping back into that, honoring that part of me in this world now, you know? And so
That's so,
then I work with clients because the clients will come to me, they're like, I have a curse on my family, you know, like, okay, well, do you guys have money troubles? Do you have like an insecurity around love? Like like when people use the word curse, it shows up, but it shows up as attachment wounds, as trauma responses, and stuff like that. It's not like, the thing with Adriana, like your chicken shall never prosper. Like that affects food. Oh, wow. I just put that together about the money thing. I gotta talk to her about that. Um,
this is what it's like chatting with Rachel and I. We're just constantly reminding each other of things. We always have notebooks next to us.
and like just parallel, just like going off into like the deep end, but it's always
Yep.
connected. So when that's what I help people with their trauma healing. Like one of my favorite things to do and my favorite ways to give back is I go into about once a quarter, there's a rehab in Danvers, Massachusetts. That's like I go into and talk about ancestral healing and substance abuse because I mentioned at the beginning, I was sober for 10 years.
Mm.
I had a drinking problem. I was in AA, went to rehab, did all the things, and that their form of higher power didn't work. And there was no room for healing of the human condition. It was you follow this way and you do this. And if you know anything about me, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at my grandfather who struggled with epilepsy his whole life in the 20s. So as a man, he couldn't say anything because he would have been shipped off to a psych ward. He went
Right.
and served in the military. It was like and once I understood his story from this perspective, I was like, that's why he drank.
Oh shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And like, and then I look to his grandfather because, and like it's just it's all of these like it's a domino effect. So my favorite ways to give back is going in talking about substance abuse and trauma healing. Like, what was your grandmother like? Who raised you as a child? What are your coping skills? Because I want this one man who was like, I'm gonna be a junkie and a liar my whole life. And I was like, Spirit's telling me that if you just learn like two or three coping mechanisms, you won't need to steal to survive anymore because you're a 50-year-old man who can go and like make you are capable enough to make things work. But someone told you when you were a child who should have brought you up that you had to do this. And you could see the wheels clicking inside of him. And he's been sober since.
Holy shit.
It's crazy.
That is absolutely insane. And it's just, I have to echo that. And we've never had this conversation really before. But it's just so interesting you bring that up because I went to therapy, right? Like I did therapy for a few years for my both of my maternal lines being like alcoholics, narcissistics, right? All of the bad stuff, right? And so there's so many things going in my head right now, Rachel, based on what you're saying, right? Because I think I had 5 appointments with this therapist, and I was like, "You're not going to help me.
Yeah,
You're not going to help me. There's nothing that you can say to me that I haven't already mulled over in my brain and come to that conclusion."
with spirit. But you didn't
Right.
doing it with spirit.
Right. Because what I needed to do was heal the family lines because I knew it wasn't me and I couldn't figure out how to get it out of me.
Right.
And
Right.
so,
Because it's wrapped up in your DNA.
right, right. And until I did this spiritual work,
Yep.
there was no hope for me to solve this.
Absolutely. And that's how our ancestors, and for most of us, it feels like we had some split in in our lineages. Spirit's showing me 4 to 6 generations back for most of us. So like for the couple of the clients that I've been able to trace back, some of it's been the witch trials through Europe. Some of it's been Christianity taking over. Like when people had to flee and hide, for some people it was slavery. When some people, we can pinpoint where their magic was hidden, but for a lot of us, we can't do that. And we just kind of walk around as these angry, disconnected people because we're told, at least in America, we're told you should be Christian and this is the religion you should follow. And if you are of Druid descent, that's not going to align with you.
Right. Right. And it's just it's all coming together in my head right now because all of these, I'm going to say more negative traits that a lot of people carry are coping mechanisms for not being able to one for them and their ancestors being able to be who they are and because you'd be socially shunned, you'd be tossed in mental asylums, right? Like so like all of these things are coping mechanisms from your ancestors of not being able to speak and live their truth.
There's so much homosexuality in the ancestral lineage that I'll click in with someone and they're like, "Oh, my grandfather was so abusive and he cheated on women all the time." And like I'll get a really graphic image in my head and I'm like, "Your grandfather was homosexual and had to repress it."
Wow.
I'm telling you, I can think of at least 12 people over the last 5 years that like that has come through where there's been homosexuality and it's been repressed and abused. And it's like ever who cares? Like, love
Who
is love.
cares?
Love is,
Who
and that's
cares?
they've ascended to a point. The ancestors their ancestors have ascended to a point where they recognize that love is just love, that there's no limitations.
Right. Because that's all there is in the spirit world. There is none of that in the spirit world. It's all just love.
I had this one, he was a great grandfather. He came in, like, he was almost angry because he lived his life as a lie and he couldn't, he like we kept connecting on like it was a man and we were talking about like sexual connection and things like that. And he's like, it feels like I'm missing a piece, no matter, and he's pansexual and he was like, I've tried the rainbow and it feels like I'm missing a piece. And his great grandfather came in and said it was the missing piece about sexual connection in spirit. So
Oh,
he's like, I never experienced that type of sexual intimacy. His great grandfather wanted to be with men and he couldn't. And it was like he was like robbed of that soulful spiritual connection in this lifetime.
can you hang on? Can you say that differently? My brain is like,
So like for a lot of like I've
stand it.
orgasm can be the closest way that we connect
Right.
with God. And this guy said that, he wasn't able to kind of satisfy this kind of craving he had. He's like, I don't know if I need a sexual healer. And I was
Okay.
like, oh, there's something in onto this. Like, there's something here. I do think you might need some sort of like sexual spiritual healing. And then his grandfather came in and was like, yeah, I wanted to be with men. And that was the only way he felt safe. And like when we look at masculine and feminine wounds, that makes sense. And like his mother, so it was the man's great grandmother was very abusive, very
Yeah.
narcissistic. So there was no masculine protection. And his great grandfather just wanted to feel safe.
So I have to ask you, how did you do this sexual spiritual healing?
I was like, I don't know how to do this. I feel like there is something here, but like maybe you meditate with some sacral music. And then I do talk a lot about solo sex magic with people because like I don't know if I'm sure there are sexual healers in like the sex work world. I'm sure I'm so pro sex work. Um, but I don't know any. So I was like, solo sex magic,
Hey yo.
masturbation with intention. And he's like looking at me like, I'm like, I know you didn't ask for this, but it's okay.
Yeah. But I think that's so cool because you're so outside of the box of like so many different people that I know. And you really just 100% inherently trust spirit and where they go and what they tell you. And you really are of the sense of like rituals or healing,
Yeah, so healing.
right?
That's
Which
what
is,
drew me to Catholicism when I was a kid was the ceremony.
oh, okay. And maybe this is why I am so anti ceremony because I came from Catholicism and
Yeah.
I was a literal altar girl. So I would have to learn and practice and ring the bells and like bring up the body and blood of Christ, right? Like up onto the
But we're the
stage.
weird ones.
Yeah. I almost fainted one day. That probably says a lot. While I was doing altar service.
Oh my God, it does though. That tracks so hard because I disassociated through Catholicism because I was like, this is bullshit. And I feel like same. Your higher self was like, no, thank you.
Yeah. That was the day I quit, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
true.
was like, because I was like, I'm like, even as a little girl following those signs, being like, okay, why did I? Because I felt fine. And then I felt really dizzy that one day. And I remember like getting out, oh, look at you, eyes tearing up. I
That's
remember
crazy.
getting up in the middle of the service and there's two of us, right? And they recruited girls because they couldn't get enough boys in the community to do this, right? So they recruited girls and me being good girl, let me get my perfectionist mode, let me get my positive
Well,
energy
and
feeding
also the
into everybody
benefits
else's.
from your mom. Your mom is gonna love that.
Oh yeah,
You
yep.
pulled an
No,
altar girl.
I was an altar
I know she
girl.
would love that.
Yeah. But
So
yeah, that's so
that's
it's so interesting because I'm so anti-ceremony.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I teach it in my beginner's mediumship class. I'm like, here's all the things that everybody else does. I don't do any of this. Do what
Remember the
works for
first
you.
time we did that spell together? I remember you were like, "How do you cast a circle?" And I was like, "Oh, I say it in my head and this is how I do it." And you were like, "That's so easy." Like it's so much, it was so much, I'm sure probably not what you were, because when you watch like movies like The Craft or things like that, like and there are very much ceremonial magics you can do where it's like calling in the towers and doing all that. I can't do that. I give myself a lot of grace.
Oh yeah. I mean, don't we all, right? But I have started in my demonstrations lately, like I'm gonna say almost casting a circles, but I do it more of an Akashic Records kind of style, but it's still to me, it's still a circle. And I like put everybody in this energetic bubble to clear out energies and provide healing while you're in that demonstration with me. So it's been so interesting because I have to say it, the last time I did this at a crystal mine, I did this. I put the whole store in this vortex energy while we're doing it. And I think the people can't really feel it because they're in it. But
Yeah.
then I had somebody come, the worker's mom come and pick her up at the end of the day. And she walked in and she's a metaphysical practitioner. And she walked in the door and she's like, what the fuck is with the energy in this place? So I was like, oh, cool.
It was me.
So I can't. Um, but yeah, like I just love how you do all of the, what do you what go ahead,
Oh
I'm
no,
seeing your
I'm just
brain go.
because I just put together that so you had that demonstration at Crystal Mine, I think on a Wednesday. I went
Thursday.
the next oh, it was the next okay, so I went the very next day to get this necklace and I had never been there before.
Shut
So
up,
I'm
that's
wondering
okay.
if I was responding to your energy.
Oh maybe because she's pointing to her moldavite necklace and I also wear a moldavite necklace 24/7, so
Yes, and I was terrified until I met you and held it when we went out to the bar that day and I was like, "Oh, I could do this.
yep,
I could do this."
ironically the lesbian bar, right?
Yep, Fembar.
Yep.
Shout out Fembar. Listen,
Best, it's the best. I
it
love
is.
that place, it was amazing. um I don't know, so let me see. Okay. So while we're talking about circles
Yes.
and rituals, I know that you have a freebie out on your website. Is that right?
Yes. So there is, sorry, I got really excited and yelled.
Yeah.
So when most people sit with me, they're like, how do I connect with my ancestors? So there is a really like easy way that you can call in the elements, connect with your ancestors, and kind of feel out who's open to working with you. Because not everybody is, right? Not a lot of us come from like I took me, so I started ancestral healing in 2020, and it took me 4 years to connect with my maternal grandmother, who I knew in life.
Wow.
4 years. She
That's
just wasn't open to
incredible.
it. So anyway, so this is like a little ancestral connection, so it can help you kind of figure out who's open to who, where you want to go, what you want to focus on. Because a lot of ancestral healing is coming home to self,
Hmm.
ridding the programming. What do you want to do? How do you want to operate? It's almost like making the world as sensory pleasing to you as possible. That's all of our birthrights, and it's stolen from us.
It's incredible. So I'll toss that link in the show notes to go download that. I think it's a wonderful freebie. And I've seen you work and I know how amazing your work is. But when I'm talking about your work, how I don't I feel like I want to do like the stuff I do at the end right now for some reason. So let me do that now and then we're going to circle back to something because they're telling me if we do this something's going to come up. So how do people get in touch with you?
So usually Instagram, I'm the Good Witch of the Northeast. I do have a YouTube channel, and I also have and then through my Instagram I have a Calendly account, so you can book right online through that. And I will have my website up and running within the next like 10 days.
Okay. So yeah, definitely by the time this releases. And then what are some of your service offerings?
I do a lot of ancestral healing.
Yeah.
And they're all, so most of the time people book with me will either do a general reading, kind of see what spirit wants to say. I do more directive, so ancestral healing. We do a lot of road opening. I do spell work for people depending on what they need in their life, whether it's protection, ease, gentleness, healing, whatever. Um, I do cord cuttings for clients, but those are for like existing clients that I vet first, because spell
That's
work
fair.
is intense. And like there's some people are like, oh, jinx that guy that spit at me. I'm like, why the who? No.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Punch
because
him
you
in the
don't do
face yourself. That's a
yeah,
jinx.
and I think that's the biggest thing about your work is it's all self-reflection or healing of your own yourself or your own lineage or your own like I'm going to say soul, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so there's no negativity whatsoever associated with your work ever. The integrity that you have is just absolutely incredible.
Even
So
when it comes to cord cuttings, I view it as a domination to allow because it's usually with a toxic energy. It's usually with, an abusive narcissistic energy. So I look at it as like, like someone licking their thumb and pushing it down and like, fuck you, this other energy is gonna rise.
oh
You
my
sit.
gosh. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So the one I wanted to ask you about because they said once I ask you, you're gonna what's the road opening? Tell me about that.
My favorite. So that's the one that we all did together. So that is, I look at a road opening as kind of soothing things, because I feel like for me personally, I get into this groove where I live day to day, and I
Yeah.
have a hard time planning, and I have a hard time noticing when things are getting clunky or junky or like kind of bogging me down.
Yep.
And so a road opener spell is um it's great. So you literally like all I'm seeing is like an open road in front of me. But like say there was like a tree, like say you're driving and there's a tree across, a road opener literally is comes and clears it. It moves it out of the way. It brings opportunities in, people in, connection, abundance, because we are such a money-driven society, but not everything reads as energetic money. So
That's amazing.
opportunities, connection, like meeting you guys was done after a road opener.
Oh, so yeah, definitely. So those of you that want covens, do your road opener. Oh my
Oh yeah.
gosh, that's
And then
incredible.
when I do spell work for people, I always do a reading with it, because that's something I didn't do the first. That's not something Wicca ever taught me. So I did what was I doing? I was getting a reading with someone in 2020, and she was like, "You don't do divination on your spell work." And I was like, "Am I supposed to?" And she was like, "Yeah, yeah, of course you are." So now every time I do a spell with somebody, I always do a reading on like, what is the energy like? What are possible outcomes? What are possible hiccups that could happen? What are some obstacles? Like use the tools provided.
Wow. That is so cool. That is so cool. And for some reason, what keeps coming up in my mind as you're talking about this road opener ceremony is like it's almost like an energetic alignment assessment,
Yeah.
energetic alignment, because I'm seeing the chakras all like lined up and lit up too. And I feel like that's not consciously necessarily what you're doing,
Mm-mm.
but
But
that's
me in
what,
my personal practice, I very much I work with the chakras a lot in my personal practice. So that's
yeah.
why.
Yeah. And I have to say, as you're talking, like your freaking crown is blown open. It's blown, like you keep saying, and I've heard you on other podcasts say, like when you did the 10 droppers and not the 10 drops,
Yeah.
like you're like, my third eye is blown open. And I was like, no, honey, it was your crown.
That way makes way more sense. That
And
makes
like
me.
as your crown's open, I just see like rainbows shooting the fuck out of it. It's like you're
That's what
this,
it felt like. I
yeah.
cried for 5 hours and then I was fine.
Oh my goodness. And it's just, and here we go. It's like this mini reading. I hope you don't mind, Rachel. And then what's with the dreams?
I don't dream. And the only time I do dream, or when I remember, it's so funny you bring this up. So I had a dream over the weekend about my relationship. And normally years ago, that would have thrown me,
Yeah.
especially because I'm psychic. So I got up, I was so anxious and I was away for the weekend. And I went into the mirror. I was like, do you have prophetic dreams? And I was like, no. Do you think that's a prophetic dream? No. I like talked to myself like I would a client. And then I said, what do dreams mean to you? Like, how do I, because I do read my dreams. Like one time I had a dream about a tornado, and I remember in my dream saying, this is not a real threat. The threat is inside. And when I woke up, I was like, oh, what does a tornado mean? Let me look that up. It was so funny. And so it was the same. I said, do you have prophetic dreams? No. Do you, what do these mean for you usually? And I said, they mean subconscious. And literally that afternoon is when Jess texted us about starting the 75-day hard. And I was like,
Oh shit.
God.
Oh
So
shit.
it's I don't and because I'm a psychic, and this is maybe for some of your other listeners, I feel like we always lean into it's not fear. Well, for me, it's fear. If I can't read something, if I can't track something, if I don't understand what something is, I used to be afraid of it instead of diving deeper into it and saying, what is the energy? Like with the tornado, I would have woken up and been like, a tornado is going to destroy my house. No, it
Right.
was about leaning into the fact I don't have control
Yeah.
and how magical and freeing that could be and literally just going along for the ride. And yes, it will damage some things, but sometimes some things need to be torn down.
Yeah. And I think that's what's amazing about you is that you recognize the patterns
Yes,
all the time,
all the
right?
time.
And like and it's so interesting hearing you talk even about the ancestral stuff, the road openers, these dreams, and it all comes down to like these subconscious tendencies
Yeah.
that we have as humans that we need to like unpack, undo. First, we have to see it, and then we have to figure out how to heal it. And you're
Yeah.
so good at doing both of those things.
That's when I learned the concept of the lizard brain, I was like, well, no wonder why we live when with fight or flight. Like that makes so much sense because our its only job is to keep us safe. And when we apply the law of attraction, because with the lizard brain, it's supposed to just look for things that are safe, look for things that are controllable. But for me, that meant look for environments that I grew up in, which I did not grow up in super safe, healthy environments at
Right.
all. So my
Right.
brain was looking for that, and it will then like put these little seeds of doubt or seeds of lies into my subconscious of like, you don't want this isn't what you want, when in reality I do want safety. I'm not that person. And so it's a lot about conditioning and deconditioning that and learning who we are individually.
Yes. And I have to say, I've seen firsthand how impactful the work you do is.
Thank you.
And I just like, I can't, do you mind if we end on like maybe a story of a client that you just remember or love in terms of like what that process was like for him or her? Sorry to
It
put you on
all
this.
went out of my head.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Um, who's the woman with the drug problem?
Hold on.
It's okay. I'm seeing her in my head. Do, 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 do.
Honestly, my favorite story is that man from the rehab.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I can tell that full story. So
Yeah.
um he when I first started talking, because like as you can tell, I go all over the place. I don't mean to, but I do. When I first started talking, I could feel his energy was like very standoffish and
Yeah.
very like kind of abstention, like I don't want to be
Yeah.
here. And so I was talking, I was doing my thing, and then he raised his hand. He was like, I'm always going to be a junkie or a liar. Like what you're saying is bullshit. Like you're just a waste of my time. And
Yeah.
like I was like, oh, you're attacking me. Like I'm here doing this for free out of the good because I love to, and you're
Yeah.
attacking me, which means you feel defensive. And then I said, how old were you when your mother died? And his eyes bugged out because I saw him immediately regress to a 6-year-old boy. And that's in that, wow, I'm just putting that together. But that's when I started realizing that I could see people as inner children. I saw him as a 6-year-old child and he said, I was 6. And I said, okay, so who raised you when your mother died? And he said, my grandmother. And then another woman came forward and she had a briefcase in one hand, a grocery bag in another, and there was a vacuum right behind her. And I said, she had 3 jobs. Who really raised you? And he said, I guess nobody. And he like lived in fucking like one of the towns right outside Boston in like the 60s when like
Mhm.
busing was still a thing. And he's a black man. So he was like, nobody raised me. Like the streets raised me. And I said, because those feel like coping mechanisms of a child. You know, I need to lie and steal to get, because I saw the movie Aladdin when he's like, I have to steal to get the bread. I was like,
Yeah.
were you trying to feed yourself when you were stealing? And he was like, when I was real little, yeah. I said, that makes sense to me. I said, so that's when I said, I wonder what would happen if you learned maybe like 2 or 3 coping skills, 2 or 3 different coping mechanisms, gave yourself a bit of a chance. Like what would happen? And he's been sober now for over a year.
That's insane.
It's
That's
crazy.
insane. Now do you all see why I love Rachel so much? Like she just comes with such love and perspective and like you don't judge anybody. You don't judge your clients, you don't judge the circumstances that they come in with. All you want to do is just like literally open these roads for them. Make them
One of my
special.
biggest tenets that I stand by is would never want to be judged for anything in my life, but
Yeah.
especially when I was in a vulnerable position, because I know I have acted out the side of my neck before. And I just wouldn't want to be judged for it because I was in a really shitty space, you know? Life's really hard.
And it's some we can't judge people by their worst moments, but we can
Oh, we
only
do.
judge them by we do. Yeah, absolutely. And this is something I keep telling my kids and trying to
Oh, the
realize.
lizard brain.
Yeah.
Because our brains are like, you can't trust this person. Look how they act. Instead of
Yeah.
like, let's calm it down. What's really going on? Are they always like this?
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I love it. Every time we get together, it's like click, click, click. All
Same.
these things start making sense. So Rachel and I are just constantly like voice memoing each other all the time,
My favorite.
along with the rest of the witches. But Rachel, this was freaking incredible. Anything you want to talk about that you're getting a download from before we hop off today?
Yes, about how fear and love don't exist on the same vibration. And
Yep.
that if you're in this world and you feel like nervous or anxious about something, sit with the energy and remind yourself that the only true unknown is death, and none of us know exactly what happens on the other side. And everything else, we've survived the other things we've gone through. Nothing's taken us out yet. So in reality, there truly is nothing to fear. And that fear, sometimes we encounter big energy. Like I know when I first started working with the archangels, I literally hid in my back room with like my back against the wall and was like, I don't want this because I was
Mm-hmm.
terrified. But then I was like, oh, it's just big energy. I also have big energy.
Yeah.
So just remember that fear and love are the only two vibrations, and that most of the time we can peel it back to just those vibrations, and it becomes easier to align yourself once you kind of strip the language down.
Right. Because as you're talking, what I teach in my classes and on a recent podcast episode too is the law of vibration. Love is the highest vibration, fear is the lowest vibration. And
Excellent.
everything else is a mix of love and fear. What
Yep.
percentage of each do you have in that recipe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I love
Oh,
that.
that's so incredible. Well,
Fun.
thank you so much for being here, Rachel. You're
Having me.
incredible.
I love you.
Incredible. I love you too. It's been such a pleasure. And I'll add again everything into the show notes. If you want to check out Rachel, she's amazing. Her readings are incredible. You will not regret it if you choose to work with her. If you feel called to work with her, give her a follow on social media, book a session with her. She's freaking amazing.
I love
Thank
you.
you again, Rachel. Love you so much.
Yeah. Bye, babe.
Bye.